Nebraska, of course, has had a few different guys hit the transfer portal the last couple of days. Logan Smothers, Richard Torres, Victor Jones Jr., Sean Hardy, Braxton Clark, Stephon Wynn, and Noah Pola Gates.
Just a couple.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a big haul in and of itself, but none of them bigger than the name that dropped here a couple hours ago. Last year's starting quarterback, Casey Thompson, entering the transfer portal.
Dang it, man.
All but erasing the great quarterback depth. Nebraska went from this morning, you woke up, they had great quarterback depth, some of the best in the nation as far as a 1 and 2, and now they don't.
Yep, felt real good about it, and now it's it's a cause for concern in Nebraska's quarterback room. Last week, before the spring game, you had 6 scholarship quarterbacks, and now you are down. Well, no, they were all there. Yeah, you had 6 scholarship quarterbacks, and now as 12:19 p.m. in Lincoln, Nebraska, on April 28th, you have 3 scholarship quarterbacks on your roster for the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
Yeah.
You have a 3-year starter who just transferred in from Georgia Tech. You have a no-year starter, a guy with a couple, 3-4 starts under his belt, 1 at Florida State, 2-3 at Nebraska. You're still not exactly sure what you can get out of him in Chubba Purdy. And a redshirt sophomore who has yet to start a game but has appeared. He appeared in a game last season, didn't he?
No, he actually didn't. No.
Yeah. So no appearances in actual game time for a redshirt sophomore in Heinrich Harburg. Those are the 3 scholarship quarterbacks that you currently have in your room on your roster for the Huskers. To me, that is strangely reminiscent of 2 years ago when you had Adrian Martinez and Logan Smothers was the backup, but he never saw the field because they didn't trust anybody after Adrian.
Yeah.
Or last year with Casey, Logan, and Chubba, where you had faith in Casey, although he had just transferred in. He was a 3-year starter, a 2-year starter. 2-year, 1 year.
Casey?
Yeah, 1-year starter at Texas, kind of off and on for the 2 years before that.
Half a year in a bowl game.
Yeah, something like that for Casey Thompson coming in. But you were pretty confident in what you were getting with him. And then Logan Smothers, who hadn't started a game or started 1 game. No, he didn't start any games. Adrian took them all the year before. And then you had Chubba Purdy, who had just transferred in with Casey.
Yeah. Well, it's in Nebraska, again, I think it is, you can be concerned about the depth and you only have 1 starter. And I think that's all fair, but that's kind of what most teams roll with. I mean, we've talked for years about getting a good quarterback system brewing, good quarterbacks in the wings. You can go back to the Taylor Martinez days, the Tommy Armstrong days. That was a complaint about Pelini, was he couldn't get backup quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's a problem nationwide for a lot of teams, is because if there's a guy that's good enough to play, he's going to go find playing time, especially in the transfer portal era. And I think that's kind of what happened today. Now you can still see examples. I mean, Kansas State's a pretty good example of having somebody ready, prepared, ready to go.
And Ole Miss has 3 starter level quarterbacks on their roster right now because 2 transferred in.
That is it, and so we'll see if there's any movement out there as well. But
Casey Thompson at Ole Miss, let's make it 4.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think Casey Thompson's going to go to a Power 5 school. Somewhere there's rumors of Auburn poking around.
I mean, based on the comments on the Athletic post. Was it Max Olson's post saying that Casey Thompson was in the portal? Auburn fans really want him or have heard good things about him in regards to going to Auburn, because within 5 minutes of it being posted, there were 5 comments and they were all Auburn fans. So I don't know. Where there's smoke, there's fire sometimes.
Yeah, there's some sort of like I think it was SI had a source say that Auburn had reached out and was interested, but it was an anonymous source. So I mean, it's hard to track those things. But the point is, it's not hard to see that if Casey is healthy, he's a starting level quarterback at the Power 5 level. Mm-hmm. I'm still not convinced he's an all-American or anything, but he's a pretty solid quarterback, and you wonder what he would look like behind a solid offensive line. If he has his choices, I hope he settles down and makes a good choice, because as good as the schools are, Texas and Nebraska, you think that'd be great ideas. That he's played behind some iffy offensive line,
very shoddy lines. My thought is, imagine the brain of Casey Thompson, because we know how smart he is in regards to football, and I mean in regards to school, I think he's graduating with his master's already this year, which is why he's able to grad transfer. But his football intelligence, his football smarts, his football IQ, his arm talent, his just football talent, whatever, behind an actual offensive line, you've seen the numbers he put up behind a shoddy offensive line at Nebraska with 1-2-ish weapons in Trey Palmer and a little bit of Travis Vokalek, although a healthy Travis and maybe some more plays called for Travis probably would have put some more numbers up. And then at Texas, with all of the talent that he had down there, Bijan Robinson, I'm the wide receiver's name is escaping, Xavier Worthy. You saw the numbers he put down there. I mean, you saw the 5 touchdown game against Oklahoma, like everything he was able to do down there. Again, a shoddy offensive line. Just imagine that this Casey Thompson, that caliber of Casey Thompson behind an offensive line that actually gives him time and just medium weapons, like not even Xavier Worthy, Trey Palmer, like guys that are definitely going to get drafted in the first 2 days of the NFL draft. But just some pretty good wide receivers, some solid wide receivers that are playing at a Division I level, and Casey Thompson has an offensive line that is able to give him time. I can see him being putting up fantastic numbers, and maybe not being an All-American, but being fringe second team, something like that. Maybe like a second team All-Conference, or maybe even depending on the conference, depending on the quarterbacks in that conference, a first team All-Conference, because you've seen what he can do with a bad offensive line. You've seen him scramble and make throws. You've seen him sit in the pocket, take the hit, make throws, the accuracy on the deep balls, the accuracy on some of the shorter, the ability to fit it right over the linebackers into tight windows, everything. He's able to do all of that. He's just never had time in his 2 spots to sit there and actually complete these passes. Now,
he has been a little bit turnover prone at times. I find him kind of a rhythmic quarterback, where if he's in his rhythm, look out. But if he's kind of not, he can kind of start to, can miss a few.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like anybody.
I mean, 47 touchdowns to 19 interceptions in his career, 30-9 at Texas, 17-10 at Nebraska. A little turnover prone, but I'd take those numbers.
Yeah, but I'm like we saw it last year, 17-10. Probably throw a few fumbles in there.
I mean, 17-10 and people in his face. Yeah. 2 steps after he gets the ball.
Yeah, at times. I mean, it's not like every play was that situation, but I mean, he did get shellacked quite a bit, and you wonder what he would have done. And just altogether, as we kind of close the Casey Thompson chapter at Nebraska, I suppose, there's always going to be an interest of if they were able to keep him healthy. Now, I think that was part of the whole awful idea of last year from the beginning. And by the way, let me say this before I say that last year was just a mess, which it was. But the athletic department's doing an incredible job right now. No better job of highlighting your strength in a fan base and what they're doing with volleyball day. So I'm not saying, I don't have too many complaints about the Trev Alberts era. Last year was a major complaint because to me, it did sound like they were throwing a lot at the wall, seeing if it could stick, and it didn't really even make any sense. It's like, okay, we're going to bring in Mark Whipple, who had his Biletnikoff Award wide receiver drafted last night, by the way. So shout out Mark Whipple. But we're going to bring in Mark Whipple, again, kind of throwing things at the wall, but it was all this kind of build behind, okay, we're going to now have a pro-style a pro-style type of offense with a sit-in quarterback with that type of offensive coordinator, and you just kind of think, yeah, but you thought from the whole time, at least I did, is you don't have an offensive line for that. Why is that the plan?
Mm-hmm.
And so it did kind of fall apart predictably, but nevertheless, the plan that was in place, that's what it was. And you're going to wonder, especially with, kind of Mickey Joseph in there, they came up short a few times without Casey, what they probably could have pushed for a bowl game with Casey Thompson. I mean, pretty reasonable to say that.
I mean, you go back and you look at the games where Casey Thompson was injured and the quarterback play and how subpar it was and how close the games were. You have to think, if you did have Casey Thompson, regardless of the offensive line shoddiness, his ability to chuck the ball down the field and have Trey Palmer run under it, nobody else in that quarterback room could do that, at least not last year.
No.
But as you said, closing the door on the Casey Thompson era at Nebraska, the 1 year of Casey Thompson at Nebraska, and apparently opening the Jeff Sims chapter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's if it's not Jeff Sims, I'd be extremely surprised. But the Jeff Sims chapter seems to be opening at Nebraska with the transfer of Casey Thompson. And like we said, you've got 3 scholarship quarterbacks. There is a chance, it was mentioned yesterday, that Logan Smothers, depending on the quarterback market, could come back to Nebraska. So that would give you 4 scholarship quarterbacks and a guy who, although he has his one start at Nebraska against Iowa 2 years ago, you're still not exactly sure where he would fit within this offense. But I think with a more quarterback run centric-ish offense that he would probably thrive.
Yeah, I think he would too. I think he would at least, I don't know about, I don't want to say thrive. I think I think that he could win the second job. I think it's clear that Jeff Sims has that starting job, but I do think that you're going to have, if Sims goes down with an injury, you might have a one-dimensional offense at this point. I mean, Purdy's good at scrambling. We've seen that. That's
out of the 2 other quarterbacks in the room, Purdy is, in my mind, a better thrower than Harburg.
He is.
Harburg's is
still a developmental guy.
So Jeff Sims is the best at both. If you're just taking the 3 quarterbacks in the room, he is the best at both. Harburg is, in my mind, a better scrambler, or at least running forward than Chubba Purdy. I don't know about his pocket presence and what he's able to do to avoid sacks. But running wise, if you're just running the quarterback, I'd take Harburg over Purdy, but I would take Purdy throwing over Harburg.
Yeah.
So it's not great either way.
Yeah. Either way, like I said, I think you're probably getting into a pretty close to a one-dimensional offense. So you better be able to run. And I'm not completely. Obviously, you still have the passing game, but I think if Jeff Sims goes out, your expectations of what you're going to get out of the passing game, like if you're expecting 200 yards passing, you're probably not going to get it.
Yeah.
So, that and that dramatically changes, the backup quarterback situation, obviously, at Nebraska. Like you said, maybe there's an opportunity for Logan. Maybe there's an opportunity to grab somebody else out of the portal. But it's pretty clear now with Torres and Thompson out of the room that shrank from 6 to 3 now.
It was quick.
where they're headed with it in bringing in a dual threat quarterback, which for what it's worth, I think I love dual threat quarterbacks. It's another dimension that you have to worry about. So I think that as far as that's a good idea. But as far as did this quarterback room get better with Casey Thompson leaving? Absolutely not.
No, so that's not even. I don't even think that's a question that should be posed.
Yeah,
I would have felt so much better. I think a lot of people would have felt so much better with Casey staying around. But he's a competitor. He wants to play. And based on, what we've heard and how much they've talked up Jeff Sims, I still think a healthy Casey starting in the spring and practicing through the spring wins the job. That's my thought. But, he's not. He's hopefully a little healthier now. He's going to enter the portal. We'll see where he ends up. I wish him the best. Unless it's Iowa or Colorado. Then I don't.
Well, and,
although that's not going to happen.
Iowa's already got the
Yeah, they have Cade, and Colorado has Shadir.
Yeah.
I always feel like I'm saying his name wrong, and I feel bad.
Well, you just got to worry about saying his name in general because you say the wrong thing. But it's also interesting to note that Casey will now join JT Daniels as guys just that never leave college football. This will be his 3rd school that he'll likely start at. JT Daniels the same way.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, that'll be something to look forward to.